Hello and welcome back to another video here at Dolphin Computer Service. Today we're going to be continuing our series here of good equipment for your business, school, home, personal life, whatever you deem is necessary that you need to get your work or your pleasure done. And today we're going to be discussing the laptop side of this series, where last week we did tablets and the week before we did phones. So I figured a good place to start here would be for, especially for the business crowd, the Lenovo ThinkPad series. These are absolute tanks of laptop. Every business that has a employee that works outside, whether they're a technician, a mechanic, an inspector, they all have Lenovo ThinkPads, and for good reason. These things are meant to be used and abused. I've seen at a aviation mechanic shop where the whole laptop was painted in overspray with white paint, and on the screen, on the keyboard, on the outside casing, and it still worked like the day it was new. These things are meant to be on the outside, be in the elements, and keep performing. These laptops also have a built-in one of the many models. This one's an older one. These are also one of my favorites. I like these older ones with the Core i series, whether it's an i5 or an i7. An i7 is actually a really nice model to get. They also have various other types of models. Like they have one that there's a hinge in the middle and it turns into a tablet with a pen. These things used are fairly inexpensive to get. You could still buy them brand new. Actually, again, there's a lot of models here, and to put them all on the screen, it would be an hour-long video in itself. So I just put this one, a very basic and a very good laptop. Especially these older ones, and even a lot of the newer ones, they have a bunch of ports on the side for everything you can imagine. If you're a student looking for a cheap laptop, this is one of the ones to get on eBay. You can easily pick one for $100. I've seen them for about $100 for a semi, nice condition, not in a semi nice condition, but a pretty worn condition with an Intel i5. And believe it or not, everything still works. Like I said, parts are easy to get for these things. They're also cheap. Upgrading and repairing, again, is also very easy to do. In fact, this one even has a fingerprint sensor, as you see here. Overall, this is a very good laptop, especially for the work and hard climate-oriented clientele or people, or someone that just needs a laptop to get them by. So the next one we have here is the Dell series. This is the XPS series. This one's the 15-inch in particular. They go from the 13-inch to 17 inches. This one is a very good one. I believe even the 13-inch also has discrete graphics cards, which means they have a separate display driver and display graphic and a separate graphics card, meaning that you could actually play video games on this. These a lot of people, they want to play some games on it. They want to play games, in between classes or, and they're on the go, but they don't really want to spend a whole lot of money. And these usually, you can pick them up. The older ones have a 1050 Ti from NVIDIA, and the newer ones, I believe, is a 1650. If I remember correctly, I think some of them even have the 1650 Super. And for very, very light gaming, this is a very good laptop. It's not as flashy as some of like your Alienwares and other gaming laptops and stuff, but a lot of people, they don't want the flashiness. They just want something that can get the job done without being overly dramatic about it. They can do easily work, school, play. This does it all. These also have a very good port selection. Not as much as the ThinkPad, but this one is a more modern laptop, so it doesn't have, like a VGA, a serial port, USB 1.1 or a PC card. This has all the basic stuff that you need to do, an HDMI, an SD card reader, a headphone jack, and a couple of USBs. But again, this one's a very good laptop. This one also has a bunch of flavors. Like you could change the screen on it to a super high res 4K display. You could get a 2-in-1 where it'll turn into a tablet. Another way they call it is a convertible, because this whole screen flips back 360 degrees on itself. Some of them have touch screens, Webcam I heard is really good on this. In fact, when I had a 13-inch Dell XPS, the webcam was pretty good for what it was. Usually, for some reason, laptops never have good webcams. I don't know why. That's for some reason the industry standard, but these have a very good, a very decent webcam for those that need to, do your Zoom calls and all that. Overall, these two that I mentioned, the ThinkPad and the Dell, those are the two Windows computers I would recommend. Again, they come in all different flavors, screen sizes, and horsepower ratings for your computing needs, whether you need a power saving i3 or a full race car of a CPU in the i7. I think even the Dell XPS has a Xeon option. I don't remember. These things are always being updated every year. But overall, this is a very good laptop for not only school or for work, but for content creators as well. Again, it has a dedicated graphics card to do all your graphical needs if so need be. So this one is what we call a Chromebook. This one is very unique because this is specifically made for the education market. It's a version of Android, to the best way to describe it. And the nice thing about these Chromebooks is that a lot of educational institutions will actually give your child, or if you're a student yourself, will give you one depending on the school or institution you are going to. And this type of computer is perfect for getting your work done for school, which is typing up documents. It even comes with the Google version of Word installed already. Going on the internet, watching your Netflix, getting your work done, doing some Excel spreadsheets. This is what this is perfect for. These also have a bunch of flavors to them. Some of them have a Qualcomm processor, which is basically, for you Android folks out there, is what powers your Android phone. Some of them even have Intel processors. Those are a little bit more expensive, but I always recommend getting the Intel one because they usually run a lot better. These things also tend to have smaller capacities in terms of storage and RAM. I believe this one here is a 16 gigabyte solid state drive with 4 gigabytes of RAM. But for a program like this, which is basically Android, it's more than enough to do your stuff. And everything, believe it or not, here is based on the cloud. So when you type up a document on Google Word or Google Docs or Google Excel, it saves it automatically to your Gmail account. Your contacts sync over when you sign into Google Chrome. All your web browser applications, your search histories, your logins, all with just one sign in. It all gets transferred over. You even have the Play Store here. A lot of Android apps can be downloaded and run on this type of computer. This one, again, also has a bunch of flavors as well in terms of screen sizes, in terms of what it can do. Some of them have touch screens and are convertibles that turn into a tablet. And then you have some that are just tablets by themselves, and you can use them in a similar way like an iPad Pro, where you can buy a keyboard for it and attaches magnetically. The nice thing about the Chromebook, and I think the application, the OS is called Chrome OS, is you don't specifically need to have a MediaTek processor or a Qualcomm processor. It'll run on older computers. You just have to download the application and install it. In fact, I may do a video on that later, because since this OS is very low powered, it doesn't require much of really anything to run. You can give old computers a new lease on life if you want to, give a computer to a kid that doesn't have one and he wants to do his schoolwork, or you just need to get a computer up and running so you can give it to somebody else, or you want to extend the lifespan of that particular computer. It's very hard to upgrade. That everything is soldered in, you can't do anything about it. This will give them at least a somewhat longer lifespan and a good lease on life. Again, I may do a video about that in the future, because this is something that you're seeing more and more often in schools, because this is what they are made for. So then here, finally, we have the MacBook series. The MacBook lineup has three main computers to it, which you see the Air, the 13-inch Pro, and the 16-inch Pro. Again, these have a bunch of flavors. So we'll start with the MacBook Air. By the way, These prices are for the regular market. If you go to their education website, they're actually discounted by a little bit. Like the MacBook Air starts at $999 instead of $1099. So the MacBook Air is a popular one among students because, especially now with the M1 series with the custom Apple silicon chip that they have installed, since it has no fan, the M1 specifically has no fan, so it's really quiet. It doesn't get hot, and the battery lasts a very, very long time. I've heard people getting easily 12 hours out of this machine. The MacBook Air is popular among students because it's the cheapest one to get. A lot of college students in particular didn't like a Windows machine. They wanted a MacBook because of reasons X, Y, or Z. I know Windows, personally, for me, Windows is a kind of a pain, so I understand why they would fork up the extra money for something like this. Also, since it is Mac OS, if you have an iPhone, everything syncs up perfectly. You can answer your messages on your computer like you would if you were on your phone or on your tablet. So, there's a lot of advantages to it. A lot of content creators, such as music artists, music production, video editing folks that are in that type of career, exclusively use MacBooks for that reason, actually. So they won't go for the Air, but again, the regular student usually likes the Air because it's the cheapest one, and it's going to do 99% of what they usually do, which is type up a document, go on your Netflix, watch a video, do some Excel, do some homework on Blackboard, something like that. The Air is perfect for that. It's also really lightweight, and it can fit in a regular backpack kind of easily. And since it's really thin, it doesn't take up much space, especially when you have it packed with books. That's basically the reasons why someone will want the Air. So the Pro is the 13-inch Pro in particular is the one you're going to see mostly out in the wild. The Pro, especially now with the M series, now comes in two versions that you could still buy at the time of this recording, at least. So you have the Intel-based version, which uses an Intel i5 or i7, depending on how you configure it, if you're still allowed to configure a new one that way. I know you can still buy them, but I don't know if you can configure Intel ones as of the recording of this video. Then you have the M1 series, which is their custom silicon. And even though it's the same CPU, quote unquote, in the Air as in the 13-inch Pro, the Pro has more features. One of them is the touch bar. The other one is the GPU count. I think instead of 7 is 8. You can get 16 gigabytes of RAM on both. And a little caveat here, none of these are upgradable. At least this lineup are upgradable at all. So if you're gonna buy one new, you have to know what you're gonna get before you hit that buy now button, because once it's bought, it cannot be upgraded. So an example, if you bought a 128 gigabyte SSD and 8 gigs of RAM, and you find out that that's not enough for your needs, you have to buy a whole new computer, because the RAM and the SSD are all soldered together. You cannot remove them. I tell this to everyone because some people, they're like, oh, I think the cheapest of the one that they have available is more than enough. Then they realize, once they start editing a few videos, that it actually wasn't, and now they're stuck with a machine that they have to go back and return and purchase another one. But again, with the M1 MacBook, the processor is actually powerful enough to even with just the 8 gigabytes of RAM is more than enough to do 4K editing. I've seen a bunch of videos on YouTube for it. I haven't had my hands on one, unfortunately, yet. They're kind of hard to come by. And but yeah, these are a very good computer, especially for content creating. This is the kind of computer I recommend you do your research on before you get one, because like I said, since everything is soldered on, once it's there for life. It's not going to change. So the only difference between why someone will want the Intel one over the M1 Apple Silicon one is honestly not a straightforward answer. Some people just like the Intel one, and it's my opinion that if you're going to be spending $1,300 on a computer, to buy the latest one you can get. So the Pro again has more features than the Air. You have the touch bar with the fingerprint sensor. You have a slightly thicker display, not display, body, because these actually have fans in them. But again, at least on the M1 series, the fans actually really don't get used much at all. So since it has fans, it allows it to perform better. Basically, the easiest way to put the difference between a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air for the 13-inch model, they're actually both the same screen size at 13 inches, is because you need that little bit of extra horsepower to do whatever you need. Then we have the MacBook Pro 16-inch. The 16-inch is a big animal, and it is very powerful. If you go on as of now, they only have an Intel-based version. These go all the way up to I believe a 6-core Xeon processor. These things are meant to work graphically intensive. These also have the option to have discrete graphics cards, just like the Dell XPS, which means they have a separate graphics card meant to do graphically intensive work. This is also some of the recommendations that you need to do certain engineering programs. From what I've seen, they recommend the MacBook Pro 16-inch with the high horsepower Xeon 6-core processor. The 16-inch, you can configure it, I believe, all the way up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. Again, more than enough to run some AutoCAD or simulation engineering software. And again, these use an SSD. And also, just like the previous two MacBooks, once you configure it and hit that buy now, it stays that way for the rest of its life. So again, always be sure you know what you're getting into before you buy. These are all great machines. I've tried them all on the Intel versions of them, not the MacBook M1 yet. Again, hopefully once I do, I'll make a video about it with my thoughts. These are all great machines. They're a bit on the expensive side. Macs usually are. But if you are going to be working, to me, if you're going to be working on anything that's related to the arts, whether that be music production, video editing, movie making, or even some engineering software, this is the lineup you really want. Mac OS is a very slick system. It integrates perfectly well with all your other Apple devices you have. And by the way, I'm not sponsored or endorsed by anyone. I'm just giving my opinion on what I think is good for you. Businesses normally don't have these unless, again, they're in the arts department. But if you are going to purchase these for your business, I would recommend the 13-inch MacBook Pro if you are going to be doing laptops for your employees, because it's the nice middle ground between the lightness and portability of the Air and the high horsepower needs that the MacBook Pro 16-inch can give. Again, all of these are configurable to a degree, whether it's storage, the CPU you can get, or the RAM you can get. You have plenty of options there, but it's not like the others where you can buy one that folds into a tablet or, has a touchscreen. Basically, the only upgrades you can do is for performance and storage. And that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Hope to see you all in the next